everybody, I'm Corinne Blackstone and welcome to my craft room. Before we get started, be sure to sign up for my monthly newsletter down below at CorinneBlackstone.com. You can join the website there as well, and that will give you access to free SVGs and some other fun resources as well. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to etch a plate. Now I know it's hard to see right now, so I'm going to hold up some black vinyl behind it and hopefully you guys can see it a little bit better. But this is a really fun project. I'm going to show you how to use some fonts to set this up, how to size it, how to make sure that it's centered, and how to set up the stencil for the etching. This is a great project to do. It's super easy. It's a wonderful beginner project. So if you are just getting started with Cricut, this is a fun way to learn how to stencil and use etching cream. The glass plate is from the Dollar Tree, so that's what I love about it. Even if you mess this up, you've only wasted a dollar plate and a little bit of vinyl, which is pretty inexpensive. I'll link everything that we're using for this down below, but I can't wait to show you how to make this. So let's go ahead and get started.
Whatever we do it just for fun.
One of my favorite places to look for fonts is dafont.com. Now these fonts are all free, but keep in mind that these don't contain a commercial use license, so these are going to be more for your personal home use, something you're going to make for yourself or to gift to somebody, but you cannot sell these like a design that you made with these fonts. That's really inappropriate and unfair to the artist of the font. So what I love about dafont is they'll show you like the recently added fonts, so there's some cute ones here, but not really what we're going for. But they have everything pretty well kind of organized here in the top section. So you have like fancy fonts, foreign, techno, bitmap, gothic, basic, script, dingbats, and holiday. So we're going to look into the script, and I like to look at the handwritten fonts. Now, because we're going to be etching this, I don't want anything really, really thin. And I also don't want anything that has a lot of like minor changes in it, like brush marks. I really like this Delight Snowy. That's really pretty. I just downloaded Better yesterday, but I think the holes in like the letters are a little small for what I want to do. But Delight Snowy is pretty cute. Better Day is actually really pretty too. Let's go with Better Day. I think that one's kind of the look that I'm going for. So what you'll do to go ahead and download a font from dafont and install it is you're going to click Download. It's going to bring up a folder and ask you where you want to save it. Now, I'm fairly organized when it comes to my fonts, so I have all of my fonts in my font folder, and I'm just going to click Save. Now, it may open down here in your little downloaded tab, so you can just open it from there, or you may need to go into your font folder and find it. Now, it's really important that you extract your font or you're not going to be able to install it. So what you're going to do is click Extract All, and then just simply click Extract. Very, very easy. It should open your extracted folder, which is going to be the folder that contains the font that you can download and actually install. So what you'll notice the difference here is one says extract up here and one doesn't. Go ahead and close that extract folder. You don't need it anymore. Then what you want to do is right click on your font and click install for all users. It's just going to install it super fast. This takes like 2 seconds. But what's great about installing for all users is you're going to be able to use that font in Inkscape, Silhouette, Cricut, Word, pretty much everywhere that contains fonts. Now it is important that you make sure that your Cricut design space is closed when you do this, or if it's open, you need to close it and then reopen it for the font to appear. Once you've reopened or opened design space, simply click on New Project, and then you can just start designing from here. So let's first mess with our text just so you can see the new font. So I'm just going to make this the Blackstones, and I'm going to find that new font. So to choose a font, go up here to where it says font, and there's a drop down menu. Now what I like to do is I use my system fonts, which is the center selection. So in the search term, you can just put whatever part of the name you remember. So I remember it was called Better Day, so I'm just going to put Better, and you'll see that Better Day has come up. Select that font and it will change the font in your design space. Now, I don't know that I love that, but it's fine for now. I might change the font, but I did want to show you how to download. And I think what I don't like about it are the S's. They're a little bit weird, and I just kind of don't like the way that the letters sit, which is fine. If you download a font and you decide it's not right for my project, that's totally okay. It's super easy to change your font. Just go back to your fonts and click that little X next to where you searched, and it'll bring up the rest of your fonts. So you can kind of go through and find a font that maybe is better for the design that you're going for. Like that one's really pretty. I don't know if I love it for what we're doing, but it might work. But you can really just sort of browse through all of your fonts and just see if you find one that might work for what you want to do. Now remember, I'm etching, so I really want to try to avoid anything that has really thin lines or has a lot of swirls and stuff, just because for me, I just find it a lot easier if I don't have to deal with that stuff. And that makes sure that it's not going to like end up being a big mess. Now this is one of my favorite fonts, and I think we're going to go with this one just because I think it's more the look I'm going for, because I want this to look a little bit more elegant. So now from here, we can really start to design what we want it to look like. This is going on the middle of a plate, so it's going on something round. So what I first like to do is I'm going to open up a circle. That's going to help us really kind of space out our lettering and figure out the way we want it to look. A circle is completely free in Design Space, and I can make it as big as I want for now, since I know that I can size it down once I've sort of figured out how everything's going to fit in it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my circle, I'm going to send it to the back, and I'm also going to change the color of my circle so that it's easier to see my design on top of it. Now I think one thing that I want to change about my font is that it is just kind of too long. I would like the to be above Blackstone's, and maybe we just completely get rid of the word the. But if you want to try it that way with the above it, just hit enter. It's going to give you 2 lines, and you'll notice that the lines are super far apart. You have a couple options. You can either change your line spacing up here and just choose a random number and just see if you can get it closer. Your other option is if you go to advanced, you can ungroup to lines. And now what you'll see is I have 2 separate words. I have the and Blackstone's as 2 separate pieces. Now I may again get rid of that, who knows, we'll see. But now I think let's use some images from Design Space to kind of put around this. So what I'm sort of looking for is like a laurel leaf or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search laurel and see what comes up and see if there's anything that matches sort of the vibe that I'm going for my design. So like these are really cool. These are those editable images, and it's very hard for me to say that word, but these are editable images where you can change the name in the middle. It's really fun. So anything that's blue can be changed. We might do something like that, but let's see if we find like another circle, like something like this that looks more like what we're going for. And so far I really like this one, so I'm going to select that one. And then I'm just going to scroll through a little bit and just see if anything else catches my eye as a design that I want to use. There's lots and lots of options, so I think it's really fun that they give you so many things. But again, because I'm etching, I just want to be a little bit more conscious of the design that I'm choosing. So let's just try those 2, see what we think. So all I have to do is click Add to Canvas down in that lower right-hand corner. Now these are fairly similar, but now that I see them together, I don't think I like this one. It's just not the vibe. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. But I think this is kind of the look I'm going for. So I'm going to go ahead and expand the circle size here just a bit and kind of get it so that I'm happy with how big it is on our current circle. I think that looks pretty nice. Now I'm going to right click and I'm going to send this backwards because I want it to be behind the words. And then from here, I can select my words and resize them so that they fit within the design. Now we can add a few things to kind of space this out and make it look like it makes a little bit more sense, because obviously my last name is pretty long. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of the S, because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to say the Blackstone family instead. Now, because I went to grab the and it wasn't exactly, it's not behind the leaf, it doesn't like to grab that. So what I need to do is I need the to be above it. So what you can do is actually drag it on your layers to move it up. You could also right click on it and send to front as well. It's really up to you and how you want to do it. But you'll see that kind of as you play around with your design and move things around, you'll kind of see how you want to set them up. So like I said, I want to change this to just say the Blackstone family. And from here, you can kind of just space whatever out and however you want it to look. And you can really play with it and make your own fun designs. Now, I will say, I think I want the last name to be the biggest part. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a little larger. So now is when you can kind of start playing with it and figuring out where everything you want is laid out. And it's really up to you. You can lay this out however you want. For me, I think I'm going to try to center everything a little bit. And I think that looks fairly good. It's never going to look 100% centered because of the leaves. They kind of make it a little harder. But if you want to see and make sure everything's really centered on itself, what you can do, select all of your text and your laurel wreath. And what you can do is choose arrange. And what you can do is choose align. And then if you just choose center horizontally, it'll center everything, and that might help you kind of visualize the way you want it to look. Now, like I said, because of the leaf, I don't want the Blackstone to be quite on that leaf, so I am going to move it over a little, but that little touch of change is not going to make a difference when it comes to the way that your design looks. Nobody's going to notice that that is just off kilter a smidge. So I think that looks really good as far as something that I would want to etch onto my plate. I think it looks pretty cute. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to go ahead and delete the circle. That was just a general guide, so we don't need to keep that around. The next thing that I'm going to do is select my entire design. So the wreath and all the words. And there's a couple of options and ways that you can do this so that you don't have cut lines in your letters and everything cuts at the same size, same places, everything like that. You can use down here in combine. There are two options. The weld option is an option that is going to make everything one single piece, but once you save your design and exit out of Design Space, you can't undo that feature. So if you wanted to change this and say you wanted to make several plates with different names on them, I would not recommend using weld. If you use unite, it's going to do the same thing as weld. It's going to hold everything together. It's going to remove any cut lines. It's going to do all of that stuff. But you're going to be able to change this text. So if I wanted to change this to the Smith family, I can do that very, very easily. So I would highly recommend just doing it with the Unite option because it's just an easier way to be able to edit your design. Now the next thing I want to do before I do anything else is I'm going to click Save. I always click Save a couple times during my design process. But for now, I'm just going to save it right now before I size it or do anything else with it, because that way if anything happens while sizing, I'm not going to lose my whole design. I'm not going to have to start over, which can be super frustrating. Now I'm going to grab our plate, measure it, and then we're going to measure out how large we can make our little circle for our plate. The next thing that we'll do is cut out our design and get it all ready. So I'll show you how to do the sizing and all of that once I measure our plate. For our plate, we have about a 6.5 inch circle that we can work with. We're just doing the bottom place of the plate where it's like flat. So what I'm going to do is select my design and I want to just size it down, and I'm just going to size it just a little bit below 6.5. So I'm going to do like 6.4, and that's going to be the size of our etching. Now, one thing that we need to keep in mind is we're going to etch on the back of our plate. That way, like, nothing gets stuck into the etching. So we don't want, any of that goo or anything to happen in there. Because we're etching on the back of our plate, we need to mirror our image. Now, rather than mirroring on my next screen, because I don't trust Cricut Design Space to actually do it, I like to use the flip option. So what I'm going to do is select flip, and I'm going to flip it horizontally. That's going to automatically mirror it so that it cuts backwards. So we're going to be able to place the stencil onto our plate very easily and then put our etching cream on that. So from here, all we have to do is click Make It. And I'm going to tell you another quick trick that you're going to want to do when you get to your Make It screen. You're going to want to move this a little bit further away from the edge. You don't want it right on the edge of your vinyl because you want to have a little bit of space around it just so that you don't get etching cream in places that you shouldn't. So from here, all we have to do now is cut this on our vinyl. We're just going to cut this on StarCraft HD using the vinyl setting. We're going to go ahead and I'll show you how to weed this super easy, and we're going to make this really cute plate. For a project like this, it really doesn't matter what color vinyl you use. So I'm just going to use this orange because it was what was on top. I have quite a bit of it. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this on my mat. And we're going to cut our design out. This is such a fun way that you can make a food safe plate that you can use for, you know, whatever you want to use it for. It's a great gift. So there's so much that you can do. So let's go ahead and get this cut out. I'll show you how to weed it, and then we can apply our etching cream. Going to be a stencil, you actually weed this a little different, and I actually prefer to leave this on the mat when I weed it, just to kind of give you an idea of like why you're going to weed this differently. You want to weed out the parts that you want the etching cream to go through. So instead of weeding all the background off, we're going to actually weed out the words. So we want to just weed out all the parts of the words, except I accidentally already messed up and I pulled the center of a letter off. So if that happens, a lot of times you can just kind of pop it back out, and let's see if I can do it with the pin pen. Sometimes it's just a little difficult and it can be a little pain. So if that ever happens to you, always have a pair of handy dandy tweezers and pay attention when you're weeding, like I just totally did not. I forgot that that even had a little spot. So I'm just going to take my tweezers and I'm going to grab that little piece, throw this over to the side, and then I'm just going to replace that piece down, and it's totally fine. You can use your hand to kind of help you, and then you can slide it a little bit with the tweezers. Totally fine and no big deal. Mistakes happen. I'll take better care as I go. So then we're going to go ahead and just finish weeding this out. So you'll see that as I weed, I'm only weeding out where I want the etching cream to go through. Make sure that you grab any of those little pieces, and make sure you, don't accidentally get rid of the inside of a letter like I did. It's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and finish weeding this, and you'll notice that when I'm done that I'll have white space where all of the decal is. Now that I've got it fully weeded here, I'm going to take it off my mat. So I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to remove it from my mat. And I always flip it over so it doesn't get wrinkled. And then what I want to do is I'm going to cut this out. And like I said, I'm going to leave a border. So I'm going to leave a little bit of space around my design when I cut it out. So I'm not cutting right against it. And that's just going to allow for us to have a little bit of a protective gap when we go to put the etching cream on. So there is our stencil. The next thing that we need to do is to put some transfer tape on it. And this is just a medium tack. This is my favorite transfer tape. And I think this works so well for the StarCraft HD. It really works well on pretty much every vinyl. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just roll some out. I'm going to take my stencil and place it face down onto my transfer tape. Then I'm just going to burnish from the back before I just remove it from the roll. And then all I'm going to do from here is just trim it off of the roll. So I'm just going to cut it out. And now we have our stencil. So I'm going to burnish from the front as well, because I want to make sure any of those small pieces stay on my transfer tape. Just get that nice and down. And then I'm going to remove the backing from my vinyl. So I always do it backwards. It just finds it a lot easier. I find it works better. And now when you look at it, it's going to be facing the correct way. I do have a little piece of vinyl that got stuck to, but that's okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I want to keep this on my table. I have our plate here, and one thing I want to make sure I do is I'm going to clean my plate off really quick with just some rubbing alcohol. And I have these little rubbing alcohol wipes. I'll see if I can find the link for them. And I'm just going to clean the back of my plate. That's going to remove any of like the dirt and oil from your hands. If you had a little bit of like sticker left over, you just want to kind of wipe that off. And it's going to help your vinyl adhere to your plate much better. Now it does take a moment or two to dry. So while it dries, I like to just pick up all my trash, make sure that that's all out of the way, and we're going to apply our stencil. Once your plate has dried, I'm going to slide the plate out of the way. I'm going to slide this in kind of to see where it sits. Now, here's a nice thing. The plate's round, so there's no top or bottom. So you really just center it onto your surface of your plate. So what I do is I hold my plate and I come and you're probably going to see the top of my head because I do need to try to really see what I'm doing. But I'm going to try to get this as centered as I can. My hand totally just stuck to it. This is not always the easiest, but this is the best way I found to do it. And so I just sort of play with it. And then once I find where center is, I go ahead and set my plate down. I press it down and then I flip it over. This is just the best way for me. If it works better for you to do it the other direction, so with the plate up, by all means. Then what you're going to do is take your squeegee and you want to go fully around your whole design. Now I will say I can see that it's not 100% centered, but it's fine because this part's not like on the flat plate part of the plate either. So it's okay if it kind of rolls over to like the curved edge. But what you really want to do is make sure that there are no like bubbles or areas that the etching cream can get under that will cause you to have bleeding. So you just want to really press, and I'm pressing very hard. I am pressing incredibly hard on this because I want to just make sure that there are no bubbles, no possible places that etching cream can get under to cause any issues. So once I'm pretty happy with that, looks good, you're going to have these odd edges, and honestly, if you want, you can trim this part off. You don't really need it. It's up to you whether you would like to keep it or not. I tend to want to really like trim some of this away. Just the parts that'll actually come off, like if they're already stuck down, I just leave them. But if I've got like a whole corner that like isn't down, I just cut it off like that one. It just gets in the way, and I find it kind of annoying when I'm trying to remove my transfer tape. So once I'm pretty satisfied with it from this stage, I find a corner of my transfer tape and I just want to peel it back. And you're going to need to go kind of slow because obviously this part isn't well stuck down. But once you get up here, everything's well burnished, so it won't be as hard to remove your tape. But you're still going to want to take your time because you do want to make sure that everything stays down. The other thing is that the plate slides a bit, so just keep that in mind as well. So I'm just going to take all of my transfer tape off best I can here. And like, see right here, this part wanted to lift. That's okay, no biggie. It may not have gotten burnished down well enough, so we'll just come back over here, press that part back down, and then just make sure that it stays down. And that's the thing with these sharp edges and corners, you just need to watch and make sure that everything stays held down. See, like I've got another little piece up here. That's okay, we will fix that momentarily because you're not done burnishing. You want to really make sure that this is so like good on here that you don't have any bubbles. Like, see, I just lost two insides of my letters. So I just want to make sure that I don't lose those. So I'm going to use my hand to kind of help guide those to stay down. And once you have your transfer tape off, what you're going to do is you're going to go over this with a fine tooth comb. So you want to really go and press down everything. You really want to take your time. You really want to make sure that everything is really well down. And I'm like getting on the level of it so I can see. I'm moving it around. It helps to have a light overhead so that you can look for any kind of like bubbling around the edges of your design. And any pieces that you know kind of came up, you'll want to just make sure to go over those ones additionally. And then, like I said, you're just going to look for any kind of imperfections near your designs. Now, I will say this one is not sticking. The middle of the E is not sticking great. So we're going to be real gentle with him, and I hope he will stay down. But you do need to be really gentle with those centers of your letters because there's not a lot of adhesive. So I just kind of go over it. I just look around. I'm moving it around in the light. I'm looking for areas that it might kind of etching cream might go through. All right, I think I am relatively satisfied with the state of my stencil. So just to give you an idea of what it's going to look like, you'll see that on the other side of your plate, so you can see the etching. But we're gonna etching cream it on the back. So let me go ahead, get the etching cream, and then we'll get the cream on here and we'll let it sit, and then I'll show you how to rinse it off. We're gonna be using Armor Etch for this, and I'll link it down below. This is a great etching cream, and the bottle lasts a pretty long time. I don't feel like you use a ton of it. So I'm just gonna take my etching cream, and I just use a sponge brush. You can just kind of dip it right into your bottle, and there's some crumblies that came off the top of mine. This is getting to be a bit of an old bottle. Probably need to replace it in the next, like, I don't know, next time I etch, but we'll see how it does. It should be fine. Etching cream really does last a long time. So you want to make sure you're not rubbing it on. Like, you can see I'm moving in circles, but I'm not really touching the design. You really want to just dab it on. And I'm going to try to make sure I get like the gunk that sticks to the top of my brush as well. But you can use a sponge brush, a regular paint brush, whatever brush really works for you. Make sure not to get this on your hands. I do recommend if you're wearing jewelry, you take any jewelry off, and you want to use a fairly thick coat. So I am trying to pull quite a bit out of here because you do want to make sure you get a good coating on your design. And you want to make sure that you cover every part of your design as well. So I'm just making sure to kind of go over all my parts, especially this little line here, because I feel like that could easily be forgotten. And then I'm just kind of dabbing it all over. Now again, I do definitely need to I have another bottle somewhere, I just don't know where, so I do need to locate that at some point. But for now, this bottle will be fine. I'll just use the last of this bottle to finish this one. So you can kind of just see I'm pressing it in. I'm not doing too much as far as like wiping it on. You really just want to dab it on. We're going to let the etching cream sit on here for about 10-20 minutes. Really doesn't matter. Just you want to let it sit long enough that the chemical reaction can happen. And make sure you wear gloves when applying this. I totally forgot to. That's my fault. But it really is important that you wear gloves when applying etching cream. We're ready to rinse our plate. This is pretty simple. You literally just use some lukewarm water, and you can just run it over the plate. Now I do have gloves on. I probably should have been wearing gloves while applying this, but I didn't. But wear gloves. And all we're gonna do is just kind of let the water right now warm up because our water's a little bit cold. So we're gonna let that warm up just a minute. I'm gonna move our drain out of the way. And we're just gonna kind of let our water warm up. Our water takes forever to get warm. It doesn't have to be warm, just like warmer than cold helps to get the etch off. And this is one thing I love, is having a little sprayer guy. Super helpful for crafts like this because you can just use the sprayer to kind of help get some of the etching cream off. Now I will recommend doing this in a stainless steel sink. Don't do this in like a fancy like glass sink, like those ones that are like bowls. And you can use your hand to kind of help rub that etching cream off if it's like super stubborn parts. And it's not going to look etched right now because it's wet. So you won't really see it looking etched until it's dried off. But you want to just make sure you get all that cream off of there. And you want to make sure you give your sink a good rinse when you're done. It's really important not to like leave this sitting. I let this sit for about 20 minutes. They say like 5 to 10 is fine, but I usually like to do 20 just to make sure that I get like a really good coverage. All right, once you've let it rinse, you can go ahead and turn your faucet off and you can remove your vinyl. You could take your gloves off now, but I'll just leave mine on since they're already on. The vinyl should come off pretty easily, and then you can dry your plate. Make sure you toss your vinyl out because obviously it's no good now. And we're gonna go ahead and get all the little pieces off, and then I'll dry this off so you guys can see what it looks like. Here is the finished plate. Now I do have this on some black just vinyl sitting under it, just so you can see the etching a lot better, but it came out so clean and crisp. There is a little bit of dust on it. I just washed it, but you'd never know. And look at how nice that looks. I think that came out so beautiful. This makes, like I said, a great gift because this is food safe. The etching is on the back of the plate, so this is where like the etching is. And then everything else can just go right here. So this could be a really great fun gift. You could do this for like Christmas, birthdays, all sorts of things. Or if you're going to like a party, you could bring something for them on the plate and then they get to keep it because it's personalized to them. or it's just a great way not to lose your plate if you take it somewhere. But this was just a super easy, quick project that just about anyone can do. Again, the plate is from the Dollar Tree, just using Armor Etch and some vinyl to make this, and I think it came out so cute. If you have any questions, please let me know in those comments down below. I'm always happy to answer those for you. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, that way you don't miss out on any of the fun, crafty content we have coming. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, happy crafting!